So, ladies and gentlemen, all across the world, there's a SARS or COVID problem. And all across the world, there's a Legionnaire's disease and typhoid and all sorts of other infectious diseases that are spread by sewage. Now, a fascinating reality for Wuhan, China, is that it has a massive sewage problem. And then a very fascinating fact is that New York City, New Rochelle, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, the Chesapeake Bay Area, the Potomac River, the Anacostia River, the Red River, the Tennessee River, the Ohio River, the St. Lawrence Seaway, the St. Lawrence River, the Missouri River, the Mississippi River, Tampa Bay, all over the country, all over the United States, even the Rio Grande has a massive sewage problem. Now, what's driving the sewage problem is quite simply this. In the 1850s and 60s, as America's cities began to massively develop and grow, they constructed these marvelous modern engineering systems called combined sewage receptors, where the runoff water from streets and parking lots and rooftops and all the runoff water from snow melt, etc., and all the sewage from all the buildings are put in the same combined sewers. Now, here's where it gets problematic. During heavy runoff, heavy rain, the sewage treatment plants are overwhelmed and cannot treat all that mixed combined sewage. So they dump it in the rivers and the creeks and the lakes and the estuaries and the oceans, like in New York City, particularly in New Rochelle, the death capital of America. Now, what's driving this giant mess? Well, it's a lot of the real estate development speculations and the ever-expanding construction of more and more houses and more commercial business parks and strip centers and, skyscrapers and things like that. More and more sewage from hotels and motels and every imaginable real estate investment project of friends like Donald Trump and Andy Cuomo. And the list just goes on and on through the Bushes, the Bidens, the Pelosi's, this Pence guy, Vice President Pence, and the Senate and the Congress and your state legislatures and your judges and mayors and sheriffs, everybody involved in the real estate development speculation game are adding more and more sewage to combined sewers that can't handle what they've already got. Sort of like in Wuhan, China, where they have a massive sewage problem. And then we've got this giant lockdown and massive economic calamity associated with the viruses that just by coincidence, sewage spread all over the place. It's the sewage, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason Donald Trump and Cuomo and all these government leaders don't want to talk about it, it all directly is caused by their tax collecting industry. More and more tax revenues from more and more real estate development and more sewage is very good for the pockets of the uber wealthy, the 1% that control America's infrastructure and taxation systems. Donald Trump knows exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason I'm able to discuss it is I spent 50 years in the real estate development business. I happen to be a little bit of an expert on these matters. And the bankers and the tax office, planning and zoning, the health departments, they all know what this is. You take 20 25 billion gallons of runoff water and mix it with a couple of billion gallons of sewage, and you've got 27 billion gallons of sewage. And the viruses and the bacteria in the sewage, they cook, they breed, they become more and more and more potent the longer that all this bacteria and virus and all these industrial chemicals and wastes cook in the runoff water. So it gets more and more and more potent when they dump it into places like Lake Champlain, the Chesapeake Bay, the Potomac River, the Anacostia River, the Missouri, the Red River, the Mississippi, the Ohio River, the St. Lawrence River, the Penobscot River, the Connecticut River, all over the United States, like the Hudson River. And nothing but a giant open sewer, all mixed in with the COVIDs. And if you think I'm kidding around about the COVIDs being in all this runoff water, run a couple of searches on all the new testing for COVIDs in sewage. And believe me, COVIDs are in the sewage. And so isn't Legionnaires and SARS and a bunch of the other things like typhoid and, yellow fever and meningitis. And, you can just go right down the list of diseases that are associated with sewage. So I have a couple of questions for old Donald Trump and the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization on all these open sewers all over America. 770 some odd American cities have combined sewers in 32 states. Now, Donald Trump, let's get real about what's actually spreading the death and disease. And folks, I'm going to leave it right there. Do your own research. And if you think this long-haired country boy is kidding around, think again. Hasta la vista. God bless. And you betcha, we'll be coming back.